Hello everybody and welcome to the season review log for Breaking Bad Season 1. So, how do I recap this? Well, I suppose I should start with my opinion about the show. I find it to be an absolute masterpiece. No, that's not to say it's perfect. It has problems with pacing, some leaps of logic, just in general there are problems with the story. And it isn't an exactly perfect production, and some of the actors are not the best. Mainly talking about Skyler. However, however, it is perhaps one of the best productions I've ever seen. Its production quality is definitely top notch and far above anything I've ever seen. So it is at the very least magnificent to look at. Now the director is one of these jobs that are rarely accredited, but I must say the director of this show is a genius. Not only with the shots and the pacing of the best episodes, and also the acting, directing the acting as it has been, and just like every shot is a really nice composition, with minor exceptions. But let's just get on with the technical facts, or I mean, opinions rather. So, the sound design. I feel like the background music is fine enough. There's nothing exactly bad about it, and even its worst tracks are at the very least adequate for the situation. The show also has a magnificent use of not only sound balancing and having an interesting juxtaposition of scene to a mute background track, but it also has a good use of like having silence at certain moments to emphasize the moments. But it does have a lot of background to music, and it has a lot of variety to it, and it certainly knows how to balance out different scenes with background music. The sound effects are really quite good. I have nothing to complain about them, since they do have quite a lot of actually even some original sound effects, which is, or at least to my knowledge, they are original sound effects, or who knows, even like just created on the set. That would be quite impressive if that was the case, and I would not be surprised about that. Yes, I'm briefly glossing over, because those things, there's not much to complain about the show. The graphical design itself, all the sets look quite nice, very surprisingly realistic, and they have creative use of different kinds of sets for different purposes, and they also know how to make use of the dramatic lighting and the natural locations of those, not only for storytelling purposes but also for emotional height. And also, again, the show has a huge use for for interesting juxtapositions of mundane settings used for, shall we say, uncommon occurrences. And that's quite brilliant, I feel. The show has an interesting duality throughout it, which is the whole criminal activity aspect when it's built side to side with everyday life. Although the everyday life also has its fair share of drama, it also kind of flows really well into the whole criminal side of things, which makes it like an interesting kind of story that flows together quite nicely, and most of the moments do fulfill at least some purpose, and the two sides of the story do flow into each other quite well, and that makes it really quite interesting. Now the show also has a rather interesting tendency to have very mundane shots, very normal things, something like that should be considered fairly boring, but due to the acting, due to minor things and such, you get this uncanny feeling that, or it's not uncanny since you know the reason why, some things seem out of place, especially with Walter, and a lot of the directing again here is credited to the fact that the director knows how to make uncanny shots, but they are not uncanny because they are uncanny, but we know why they are uncanny, because mostly because we know what's going on behind the scenes. And that's an interesting way. Like, it certainly isn't a mysterious show. There's not that many, like, secrets to it, and it's fairly easy to deduce quite a lot of things. But that's not a bad thing, because more than anything, the show is about drama. And as a drama, it is quite magnificent. It's very, very dramatic at most moments, and even though some of the squabbles on the civilian side of things are fairly plain and boring and even at some points annoying, that's not to say that they are bad, but rather that they are more mundane than the other things. Now, that's not to say that they are not compelling drama, that's to say they are different sort of drama from what the show's main driving purpose has. Which actually is kind of good, because it creates an interesting kind of, like, it reflects rather interestingly about that illegal side of things. Yeah. I'm not gonna go too deeply into the characters. Rest assured, I do like our two main leads, because they create an interesting, not only do you believe that they are actually kind of friends and associates, definitely, but you also believe like how their story has developed, and especially like the main leading character Walter. Not only is his actor magnificent, like jeez, he's good, but also his purpose in the driving role of the story is excellent. Not only does it's like justified through the story, but it also has emotional weight behind it. And even though like he does things which certainly are illegal and kind of traumatic, you won't fault him for it. Like, you sympathize with the guy, even if you don't like accept his choices. Like, he can certainly just go around, well, killing people, but there's good reasons for it. It's an interesting show that makes you sympathize with a psychopath. Okay, well, not a psychopath, since he's like isn't crazy. He has moral justifications. Also, the show has an interesting way to foreshadow future events. Now, I've alluded on a few occasions that the show takes a lot of effect from classical literature, which is not bad. I think that the show has a tendency to have a story which is directly ripped off from different kinds of classical stories, but it gives them their own spin. It just uses the similar setting and overall storytelling purpose, but it makes the flavor far different. And it has some interesting little things and details to it, and it also has some interesting little nods to it, with not only some names, but also some actions, and just in general some little nice nods to it. So even though it does seem like a story that has been done before, it doesn't feel like it. If you think about it from a, like, just thinking about it, it is definitely a story that has been told before. Nothing unusual there. But they make it feel fresh, which is quite hard to do. And in that way, I do applaud them for making such a wonderful show. I mean, I could talk about this show for a lot longer, like the realism and how much the chemistry itself and how interesting the use of some psychological effects are, and also how well they've done some of the more hallucinatory or more nightmare fuel scenes. But those are all things that you can decipher for yourself. I like the show, and I'm absolutely looking forward to the second season and the rest of the season as well. I have complaints about the show, but it's definitely in the top 5 shows I've seen. And I'm looking forward to see how it continues. Considering that the show's main driving motive behind it is consequence, it's quite compelling. And quite specific in that manner as well, since quite a few shows even dare dabble in that kind of territory, since it is hard to do logical consequences after consequences, at the very least to make them seem understandable. But the show manages to do that, which makes it not only interesting, dramatic, and unique. Yeah, it's quite good. So, I'm gonna continue on with this show, so join me whenever you wish. Have a great day and stay awesome. Ganmu out. Thanks for watching.